And the multiple storms in Texas and throughout the country are adding a new urgency to the bipartisan push for new funding for America's states and cities. In a letter, more than 400 mayors are imploring Congress to approve $350 billion in aid as part of the president's COVID relief plan. Ed O'Keefe spoke with a mayor from each party.
One's a Democrat.
City government is hurting, revenues are gone.
The other, a Republican.
We are certainly doing a little bit more with a little bit less.
And these two mayors of Baltimore and Oklahoma City agree. Congress needs to come together quickly to help cities struggling to balance the books. What's happening in big cities isn't unique. Smaller towns like Waterville, New York, and Waterloo, Iowa, are also struggling to provide essential services as tax revenues dry up. So they're all asking for help.
I'm still looking for the mayor of a city, blue or red, who hasn't experienced a negative financial impact from the pandemic.
Oklahoma City's Republican mayor, David Holt, says the downturn caused by the pandemic means he can't make good on a law passed 2 years ago that requires hiring 120 new police officers.
That has meant, freezing the hiring of lots of positions, especially in police and fire, because that's basically 2/3 of our budget.
In Baltimore, Democratic Mayor Brandon Scott says a drop in tourism revenue means he's facing at least a $30 million shortfall.
Convention Center is a COVID testing center and a vaccination site, so no one's having conventions there.
Last year, Congress gave hundreds of billions of dollars to cities and states, but only to pay for COVID-related expenses like buying protective equipment. Baltimore and Oklahoma City each got more than $100 million. Now, President Biden's nearly $2 trillion American Rescue Plan would provide about $350 billion in direct aid to cities and states. Polls show a majority of Americans support the president's legislation, but most Republican lawmakers say it's too expensive, and that taxpayers in one part of the country shouldn't have to bail out somebody else's cash-strapped city.
This legislation, this proposal is a blue state bailout.
We should help on COVID relief. I want targeted help for people. But to bail out these blue states makes no sense.
But Republican Holt from Ruby Red, Oklahoma, disagrees.
The idea that there are places that haven't experienced an economic downturn and therefore an impact on their city services, that place doesn't exist.
And Democratic Mayor Scott is less diplomatic.
This is about a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic and the fallout that was made worse, ironically, by the inaction of a Republican president. To still be talking in partisan talking points just shows that we still have folks who do not want to grow up, do their job, and help American citizens.
The White House is still trying to build Republican support for the legislation, which the House is set to pass as early as next week. Democrats on the Hill are hoping to get that bill to the president by mid-March. Gayle, it also includes proposed $1,400 direct payments to struggling Americans.